Welcome to Moneyline MMA coverage of UFC Fight Night. Song versus Simón. The rebooking from what was going to happen last week is now the main event. And yet another UFC Fight Night card coming at you guys from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas with the main card prelims starting at 3 p.m. Central Time. So it's going to be another earlier in the day card, get you guys kind of pre-gaming with the fights into whatever's happening later in the afternoon if you guys are watching some of the other fight events that are going to be happening around the world. That being said, we're going to get into it. Before that, let's quick recap on last weekend. It was definitely not the best weekend we've had here at Moneyline MMA, as Jose and I both didn't get the main event picked correctly because, the polar bear got his KO. And that's the one thing I think we both mentioned, and that's why Curtis Blades is pretty low on our confidence in the sense that that was a very real possibility. But other than that, the fight I was most confident in is one we're going to be discussing shortly. And Bruno Silva got the job done for both of us. And I was wrong. I thought Brogan Walker, the underdog, was going to get it done. She lost that by decision. Just kind of looked behind that entire fight. So props to Lucindo. Bobby Green, that was an unfortunate ending to that fight with the head knock there that some people thought was intentional. I didn't think it was intentional. Bobby Green seemed to be winning that fight. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. It's kind of hard to make those judgment calls in this slow-mo instant replays, but that's neither here nor there. In my opinion, we would have went 2-2 last weekend. Let's move forward to this Saturday, though, and I'm going to be sticking strong to my 5-weight pick, which was Ricky Simón last week. And I will say the one main difference here, without having just completely indulged myself into this pick and blindly picking Simón just because this is now a 5-round fight, and I think that changes a little bit, mainly because Song has that knockout power. And I think it's going to be live this entire fight. It's not too likely that, I think Simón is also live to get a KO potentially. But man, in all honesty, I think by being so confident in Simón, because he is my 5-weight pick here, I think this is going to be going into the 4th and 5th round distance for the fight. When I was picking him for the 3-round fight, I'm thinking that it's definitely going to the distance for sure. So in this case, we'll definitely see, but I'm leaning towards this getting to the 4th and 5th rounds. Right now, it's still looking with Simón as the -130 favorite. Song Yadong is the +102 underdog. Jose, what is your angle on this one for weight wise?
So for this one, like you, I have Ricky Simón as well. Once again, and this time I have him as a 4-weight, and I believe I had him as a 4-weight last time as well. And I view him highly in terms of I know he's going to come in and use his wrestling. I think this being now a 5-round fight, you're right. It does keep Yadong Song live to possibly call it an early night within the 4th or 5th round. But I think Ricky Simón's wrestling. I think he's just going to completely just put the pressure on and try to dominate in terms of control time on the ground. I mean, his takedown averages, he almost lands 7 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is crazy. And he's gonna. I'm just looking to see him close the distance and take Song down quick, because Song throws almost 5 significant strikes per minute, which is more than the 3 that Ricky Simón throws on average per minute. So Ricky Simón, he's gonna have to come in through a barrage of hands of Yadong Song just throwing at him, because he's going to be throwing hard. And Ricky Simón, he's just going to make sure he doesn't get clipped on his way and try and take Yadong Song down. But I think if he takes him down, I think he can coast his way to a victory if need be. But Ricky Simón he has great submission skills, so I wouldn't be surprised if he sinks something in too on Yadong Song, especially in the 4th or 5th round.
Yeah, man. And that's honestly the next point I was going to be making if you didn't bring it up is the grappling aspect of it. Ricky Simón has landed at least 1 takedown in just about every single one of his UFC fights. In fact, at least 2 takedowns in every one of his UFC fights, excluding Uriah Faber. And that was such a unique fight, man. He was looking good. He was aggressive. And then he got knocked by Faber. And I thought the ref called that fight early, man. That was a few years ago. So maybe I'm kind of digging up some old demons there. But I don't know, man. I think Ricky Simón was still fully conscious and turning over to continue that fight. He ends it early. I don't know, man. What I'm also getting at here is that I think Ricky Simón's chin is really strong. I don't think it's going to be very likely that Song gets the KO. He might clip Ricky and he might, get the knockdown or something. Okay. But then we're in a situation where Ricky might have the advantage. He can catch his breath and be back on the ground and start grappling again. So I think all roads point towards the Ricky Simón having the advantage here. That's what the sports books agree with at minus 130. So Jose and I, this is probably going to be our lock of the week, depending on the following couple picks here for overall weight in terms of this entire card, since we got 9 total weight on Ricky Simón here.
Yeah, so there you guys have it. Both Nick and I, for Ricky Simón, we both feel strongly about him. Nick has him as his 5 weight, and I have him at my 4 weight. And now for my 5 weight, this one's the middleweight bout between Caio Borralho and Michal Oleksiejczuk. Right now, Borralho is the betting favorite at minus 350, while Michal, he is the betting underdog at plus 255. I'm going to be, it's very obvious that Borralho is a huge favorite. And that being said, I do favor him. I have him taking this. Reason being, he's on a 12-fight winning streak. And, he's 3 official in the UFC, 3-0 officially in the UFC, and 2-0 on Dana White's Contender Series. But overall, even before all that, if you put it all together, 12-fight winning streak, which I think is impressive. And he's beating the likes of people like Armin Petrosyan and Makhmud Muradov. Well, I think those are impressive, especially this early on in his UFC career. While Michal, he's riding a 2-fight winning streak, and but I just don't think he can do much to beat Borralho. But before I even get more into it, Nick, what weight do you have this fight at?
So, wow. So it looks like we're potentially going to have a tie here in top weight. I actually have my 4 weight on Borralho. I'm very confident as you are in Caio. It's a guy that we have. This isn't the first time we're discussing him. And he's been kind of a guy that at least I know I've been on riding pretty heavily and won some good money off of him, previous bets on him as an underdog back in the day, as I'll say, even though this was literally just last year. But that being said, man, I think that's just telling right there to see him be the underdog, and now he's a minus 350 favorite against pretty I'd say a pretty relatively significant UFC veteran. He's seen a lot of talent in the UFC, and Oleksiejczuk is no joke. He's got really strong striking, and that's the one thing Borralho would want to watch out for, is potentially getting knocked out. I don't obviously think that that's going to happen because my 4 weight's on Borralho, but you got to recognize your opponent's strengths and what you're looking for in beating them. And I think Borralho will still, like you mentioned, all the grappling. That's what he's going to want to go for. Oleksiejczuk does not have good wrestling defense, specifically, is what I'm trying to say. Takedown defense is not great. And Borralho, to me, can have his way. I kind of look at a fight like Armin Petrosyan when picking this, and Borralho had 10 minutes of control time in that fight. In 15-minute fight, he just completely dominated. So I could honestly see something like that happening again here to Oleksiejczuk if he's not careful. And if that's the case, it'll be an easy win, easy money, definitely for Borralho there.
Yeah, Nick, I couldn't have said it better myself. The biggest risk I have just in Borralho is like you said, is the experience that Michal has, especially coming from a heavier weight division, fighting in the past at light heavyweight. So he's been in the likes of some bigger boys too. So that's I'm interested to see how Borralho is going to do against the size with this size. I still think he's going to be good enough to get the win. I don't know if he can finish him within the 3 rounds, but I definitely think that he can be good enough to control him as long as Michal isn't too big and strong for him. I think Borralho can definitely take a safe route to unanimous decision victory by control time and ground and pound.
Yeah, because I mean, like you mentioned, some of the big dudes he's fought, like OSP, got the choke on him. I'm just kind of looking at his previous submission history, and it has been kind of big dudes that are relatively significantly bigger than Caio. Maybe not that much bigger because Caio still is 6'1". I'd say he fills out the middleweight build pretty well. And well, like you said, though, it really will kind of come down to that strength potential difference. And even if Caio isn't quite as strong as some of the guys Oleksiejczuk's seen, I still think he, as his nickname here is the natural. I think he's just going to have another ability to make it happen, even with control time. That's definitely why I would lean. If you want to kind of escape minus 350 to try and get a little bit better of odds, maybe lean. There's a lot of sports books that'll offer a fight to win by decision or points or KO, or you can do points or points or KO or submission or KO. Like there's three ways to win a fight pretty much. You can mix and match two of those three. And I would definitely prefer in this situation to mix and match the decision and submission from Borralho, even though I think the decision is more likely.
Yeah, so there you guys have it. I have Brahov as my 5-weight, and Nick has him as his 4-weight. So far, yeah, we're both signed with Ricky and Brahos thus far for our top picks.
Yeah, so far we agree, and now we're going to move on then to the next portion here after our top two. I'm going to lean with the heavyweights here. I've actually got what's going to be my first underdog pick of the day here in Waldo Cortes-Acosta fighting Marcos Rogério de Lima. This will be interesting. We have Salsa Boy as a pretty young prospect, I'd say, for heavyweight coming in. He's kind of beaten some of the more average guys like Chase Sherman and Jared Vondra that I kind of like to make fun of and wonder why they're still signed to the UFC. But, in the end, they're still top end fighters. Comparative to the UFC, maybe they're not type fighters, but in the entire world and any other heavyweight division you're going to find in other programs aren't going to find many guys much better than them anyways. So that being said, I think that's a lot to be said for WCA. He's got previous experience in Bellator and LFA, even if it's minor. It's only a couple of fights, but I still think the fact that he went in there, did it, won, and got signed to the UFC. I don't know. I like the projection. Before I get too far, though, I'll comment here that, like I mentioned briefly earlier, the underdog pick, WCA is plus 124, and De Lima is the minus 158 favorite. Jose, what's your angle on this?
So, like yourself, I have WCA taking this win, but he is my 1-weight, being as kind of like a thing like last week, kind of saying like the heavyweight division is just kind of a risky weight class to bet on because it can end literally in any given minute. And Waldo, WCA, I think he's good enough to win this in any shape or form, but Marcos Rogério de Lima's experience in the UFC, I think, is the equalizer here. And he's just, the amount of wins WCA has, that's how many losses Lima has on his record. And then Lima has 20 wins. So that's the biggest reason why I have WCA as my 1-weight. I just think it's mostly just because of his inexperience compared to Lima's.
Yeah, dude, that's a fair call. That's been a pretty heavily discussed topic, I think, lately in the UFC is how much experience is valued, and how much it can differ from women's MMA and men's MMA, how much experience may or may not be necessary to be at the top echelon of fighters. And it will definitely have a different answer per division, too. Some divisions have more technical fighting champions, and some divisions, when Francis is the champion of heavyweight, any heavyweight as big as Francis that could wrestle, I shouldn't say any, because even Curtis Blades wouldn't have a chance, having lost to Derek Blades at the time. But you know what I'm trying to get at? There's a guy out there that has the skill set to beat Francis in MMA, but it's just not there yet. So but getting back to the fight that we're discussing here with WCA, I think what you were saying about the fight ending early, probably not likely, but my WCA pick here does lean to the fight being a long kind of striking match going back and forth. De Lima does have a takedown average per fight of his, but a lot of times I think if the fight ends up on the ground, for him it's because someone got a knockdown and he's just willing to keep it there because he does have some jiu-jitsu ability as well. So that's one thing that Cortes-Acosta has to look out for. Can he get up if he gets knocked down or taken down? Can he get up within the 30 seconds, a minute, or 2 minutes before the end of the round to try and get something back to not lose that round? Because, man, in these 3-round fights, it's quick. One takedown could be the difference to losing that round, and then in the decision, you lose by split decision. So that's definitely the bigger concern. And also, like you mentioned, is heavyweights are just a struggle to pick at times especially when you're not even really picking in the top 10 anymore, or the bottom end of the top 10. So that being said, we'll agree on WCA here, but it's not the most confident 3-weight I've ever had.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. That's why he's at my 1-weight. I'm not that confident, but I am taking his youth and explosiveness and athleticism over to get this win. But yeah, not too confident. That's why he's my 1-weight. And now moving forward to my 3-weight, Nick, I'm actually gonna do like a big switcheroo on this one. Reason being is this fight between Fernando Padilla and Julian Erosa. Right now, Fernando Padilla, he is the betting underdog at plus 140, and Julian Erosa is the betting favorite at minus 180. I wanted to go with the underdog Padilla on this one, but just looking more into it, I just think it's hard not to go with Julian Erosa, and especially after what we said in the last one too, just the experience versus just the new up and coming guys getting into the UFC and just still trying to build their careers. I think I just got to go with a vet, especially being 33 years old. Julian Erosa, lost to Oleksiejczuk, that head kick, it was crazy, but he just got caught, and it was in the first round. He was riding a 3-fight winning streak, beating the likes of Charles Jourdain, Hakeem Dawodu, and Steven Peterson. I think, in different varieties too, the split decision, submission, and won by unanimous decision. I think it's hard not to side with him. And I want to make that point there just right off the bat, because I know I said I was going with the underdog before, but I definitely reconsidering it. I just, especially making a UFC debut as an underdog, I don't know. I want to see more of him first.
Sure. No, I get that, man. I think that'll be Padilla, or excuse me, so you're saying Erosa is your 3-weight?
He's my 3-weight now.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, I just want to make sure. I am having Padilla my 1-weight. So my least confident pick will be the underdog here, and I'm going to stick with that for sure. Main reasoning, there's a couple things that, of course, make me nervous, and you brought up some of those reasons. And on top of that, he's not very active either. He hasn't fought since 2021, since May of 2021, nonetheless. It's been quite a while, but he is only 26. He's not like some sort of old veteran who's just coming back to fight once more at 40. He's still on what I would say his up and come, side of himself for the growth in the UFC. He just needs to get some more experience, and this is exactly what that will be. His first fight in the UFC against a guy like Julian Erosa. Mainly what I'm looking at here is I don't think Erosa is going to knock out Padilla, and I think this is going to kind of run a little bit further into the fight, go to potentially end of the third round, maybe bet over on the rounds here. And considering that I don't think Padilla is going to get knocked out, it would pretty much come down to, can Julian Erosa get the submission? He's got a few submissions on his record. And to that is yet to be seen. I think Padilla has some ability to grapple and has some jiu-jitsu ability. But that's kind of why this is my 1-weight, man. I don't really have too strong of allegiance either way, and there's none of my money's going on this one.
Yeah, that's fair to say, Nick, and that's why it was like my 3-way as well. Just in the middle of it, and that's why I was kind of quick to switch with that as well. But that being said, yeah, I guess that's we're gonna agree to disagree on this one. But as you mentioned, you don't feel as confident in it, so that's why he's your 1-weight. And for me, I have Julian Erosa as my 3-weight. And then that comes down to the next fight. One more fight to talk about, and this one is the middleweight bout between Rodolfo Vieira and Cody Brundage. Right now, Rodolfo Vieira, he is the betting favorite at minus 295, while Cody Brundage is the betting underdog at plus 220. For this one, I have Rodolfo as my 2-weight, Nick. And before we move forward, what weight do you have this fight at?
Yeah, yep. Just since that's my last weight left, we actually agree. Then I have Vieira as my 2-weight as well. And yeah, pretty much both these dudes have negative striking differentials, and I think they both love their grappling and their submission attempts. So to me, if this goes to the ground, it's a fight you want to have within the distance, under 2.5 rounds bet. But if they stand and they strike, it'll go to decision. That's kind of, I'm more confident in saying that than I am saying as much the winner. Because it is only my 2-weight, but in the end, I do think it'll go to the ground, and I think Vieira's the better grappler. So that's mainly my thought process in making it my 2-weight.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. Rodolfo, he's just been looking incredible. I think just overall, I think he's going to be leaning towards his grappling and get that submission win. Cody Brundage, like you mentioned, he's going to come in swinging too, but even then, I think Rodolfo beats them both on the ground and on the feet. That being said, I'm going with him. I think he's just going to, one way or another, beat him on the feet, either by knockout or ground and pound him, or at least be good enough to get the decision win. So that being said, yeah, I agree. It's no doubt he's a huge favorite in this one. That being said, yeah, so I just, like yourself, he's my 2-weight.
I mean, even looking at his Chris Curtis fight, like Chris Curtis swinging, man, he's a tough guy to go toe to toe with. Vieira got no takedowns. They just stood there and swung it out. I'm not necessarily sure Brundage would have made it that long against Chris Curtis. Maybe I'm wrong, but that being said, yeah, I like Vieira.
Yeah, and the not to worry about like the submissions, even though Cody Brundage, he does have submission wins. Yeah, I'm not worried about Rodolfo being submitted either. Even though he has a submission loss to Anthony Hernandez, but honestly, I think if they were to run it back too, I think Rodolfo Vera can beat Anthony Hernandez. Um, uh, a little more again. If they were to rerun it back, I just think he overall is still a better fighter, Anthony Hernandez. I'd have to rewatch that fight, but that being said, before that he was on unbeaten streak, never losing in the UFC. So that being said, yeah, again, he's my 2-weight.
All right, well, yeah, that'll be it for us then. Those are the main fights here for UFC Fight Night. Simón versus Song. Let's hope to get something more entertaining coming up for the UFC here quick. We will have UFC 289, Henry Cejudo and Aljamain Sterling coming up soon. But that's not until May. But you will continue to see our weekly videos on here with our weekly picks, and we're going to continue to go at least 500. So you're going to want to follow us on Twitter at Moneyline MMA to get our picks, and give us a subscription here on YouTube, and let us know down below who you're going to be betting on, because if you're riding with us, you'll be making some money. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.